Neo was his night, specifically doing like the harder industrial, dancey, rhythmic noise stuff. So yeah, we met a long time ago doing that, and just so happened that we're both DJing now. We're both residents for Nexus 6 too, and we have a live night at Subterranean in Chicago. We also do other kinds of events, and I also do a monthly podcast for Noob Radio, for Noob Techno.
It sounds like you're very busy. Now tell us a little bit about what your favorite platform is as far as like podcasting or spinning live events or a club night or, you know, some other festivals.
So they are so different. I love doing Twitch because it's a way to connect directly to our fans, to talk to them, to like have a community basically, to be able to look forward to every week, like the same people coming and reacting to our music. So because it's online, I'm not assuming that everyone is listening and dancing to the music that I'm playing. So I basically have more free range in terms of what kind of genres and BPMs that I can actually do, versus at club nights, there's more, I will say there was more of a restricted range. Like if I start playing, you know, 350 BPM tracks in a row, people are gonna get tired and I'm gonna chill the dance floor. So I have to be much more aware of that. And so there's like a different kind of feedback mechanism, which is also super fun to consider while you're actually DJing, because then you have to think on the spot and not really rely on predetermined playlists.
Yeah, do you think you know, social media has a different interaction as far as like, you know, messaging people as opposed to seeing them at an event?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you can speak more to this because I started doing Twitch DJing and then worked my way into doing live DJing, but I'm sure it was far different for you because you started as a live DJ and then did Twitch.
Yeah, I kind of missed that question. I'm sorry.
I was asking if there was a difference between the interaction socially on social media as opposed to at a live event.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like Twitch is way more chill. It's more relaxed. Like I don't feel as much pressure when I'm spinning on Twitch. I mostly spin on Twitch just to spin what I feel like playing. Like I have a selection of tracks that are like new that I know I want to play, but I haven't like planned out a set. It's always improvised on Twitch pretty much. And just kind of go with the flow, and, you know, meander between different styles and genres a little bit. And it's nice just to have the conversations with people and connect with people from all over the world who are kind of audiophiles and into these specific subgenres of music. Club is just way different. You know, you're trying to keep people moving on the dance floor. The environment is just completely different with the darkness and lights and the super loud music. Like that's more intense and more fun. And so it's just kind of a different vibe.
Twitch has been a really great way to network with other people and to like meet people from everywhere. And so we've had a lot of opportunities to talk to other DJs, and then in the future we might go to a different city and DJ with someone else that we know that we met online. So it has opened the doors in a lot of ways that I think that before we didn't have. Before we were sort of more insular in our regional communities, and now Twitch has really opened that up.
So speaking of interactions on Twitch, are there any people that you look up to as far as you get your style influences or your technique from that you've been able to interact with on social media?
Yeah, so there's a lot of DJs that I look up to on Twitch, and Difflin is an incredible DJ. I look up to him, and we've been able to play with him in different events. He's in the UK. He does Slime Lights, the club in UK too. but he's incredible. Like, he knows so much about music. He always has some kind of commentary about all the different bands that he plays, and he plays sometimes 3 songs at a time and just seamlessly goes from one to the other. It's just like a pleasure to watch him perform, because you can just tell he's just like, he's having fun, and that energy is imparted into his sets, and it's just like, it's incredible to watch him. There's a lot of other DJs that I've seen that I'm just like, my mind is blown whenever I see them play. And a great thing too about Twitch is that at clubs, you can't really see DJs perform most of the time. They're like behind this like wall or like up high in the booth. But like with Twitch, a lot of people have been putting their cameras up close to their boards, and so you can see exactly what they're doing and learn from them. So I feel like very fortunate that I've been able to get that opportunity to see people perform and see what they're doing and how they're playing and like what kind of equipment they're using.
There's been a few specific channels like Interference Radio and stuff that have done a really good job of kind of collecting a lot of good DJs in this kind of techno-industrial style that we've gotten more into. And a lot of the DJs that have been on that have been really great, and it's been awesome to get, like a lot of them I hadn't heard of before, and they're from all over the world, and so to watch them spin and to do events with them and to connect with them and be friends with them now, it's been pretty cool.
That's very cool. So, Sprite, speaking from experience, do you think that the city that you live in has an influence on your music?
Chicago's home to a lot of varieties of electronic music. With industrial music specifically, Chicago has always been wax tracks. Chicago's always been kind of a focal partly why I got into industrial music in the first place, going to the original Wax Tracks record store back in the early 90s, late 80s. And some of the clubs that kind of came out of that scene too, like Medusa's back in the late 80s and early 90s, and then Neo. There's just such a community built around that, being able to kind of get into that community and kind of figure out my own particular tastes and path along that. It's been interesting, like I wouldn't have probably done that if like that hadn't been here in Chicago to start with.
Do you think that it's easier to start something new or to come into an already established event or club night and build something up there?
There's so many club nights that are in the kind of like industrial genre. There's so many actual subgenres that are kind of crammed together. You've got goth and dark wave and synth pop, and then you've got old school wax tracks type industrial in EDM, and then you've got like the newer EDM and the EDSM, the kind of like dark synth music, and now you've got more of and then you've got like the harder like rhythmic noise and power noise, and now techno industrial. The good clubs are the ones that have always kind of managed to appeal to multiple genres at the same time. Mm-hmm. Like if you look at some of the bigger kind of clubs around the world that have been longer lived in the kind of industrial side of things, like they've always done the thing where like they have different rooms that appeal to different genres all going at the same time, so you can kind of like bounce between them. You see that Fast Bunker and Slimelight and The Matrix and stuff like that. Building like the kind of genres I've been interested in, I focus a little more on newer stuff, like stuff that's more recently released. And a lot of people kind of fall into these habits of just listening. Like we talked about this before, that people kind of have a tendency to get stuck in music that they listen to kind of in high school or immediately post-high school, and that's kind of what they listen to their whole life, and a lot of people are like that. That's why like 80s is such a big genre, and now 90s. They don't necessarily want to move beyond that very much, and that's fine. Like if that works for people, that's great. I'm more the type of audiophile that's more interested in newer music most of the time. Like I'm always looking for the new thing. That's always been kind of my incentive, is to try to like push the envelope a little bit, and that doesn't appeal to everyone. It appeals to some people. When you're bringing in newer stuff at a club night, where like I want to hear my B&B and Covenant tracks over and over again for the 8 millionth time in entirety, and they aren't necessarily excited about stuff, especially if it's harder or crunchier stuff at all. So it can be really hard to build on an existing night with that sort of thing. Sometimes you're just better off going and doing your own thing, and that's mostly why I've just gone off and done my own thing.
I wanted to ask you about any charitable causes that you are involved in.
Yeah, I don't know that we would say that we're specifically involved in charitable causes, but we do raid trains that have some sort of charity events associated with them. Like we did one recently for raising funds for the Ukraine. When we have the opportunity to, we'll partake in that. It's always great to give back to our communities. But one thing that we do focus on is ensuring that we create a safe space within our events. I don't know if you want to say more about that.
What specifically?
creating safe spaces, like ensuring that we're inclusive of different people, but also in that way we're sensitive to the kinds of music that we play. Like we're cognizant. We're not going to play certain bands that might have exhibited certain kinds of misogyny or kind of
so they're fucked up behaviors.
Yeah, racist behaviors. Yeah, and that does happen, and so we want to make sure that we're cognizant of that.
Community outreach and giving back to your community is important, especially education. Awareness and cognizance is very important. A lot of people are just conditioned to a certain kind of behavior. And that's one thing that I do with the Mental Health Minute. That is very important. It was stigmatized in the past, so like within our generation, there's a lot of behaviors that affect other people. Most of it is an awareness of how actions and words affect others. Is there a difference in the reception between being a female DJ and a male DJ, and why do you think that is?
That is a really good question. But there's not as many female DJs, especially doing harder genres. I don't know if it's harder for females to be taken seriously. I see a lot of like these events where basically there are all male DJs on the bill and there's no female DJs on the bill, but there are always females being represented on flyers in objective ways. And so I don't really quite understand why that is still happening today. There's so many talented female DJs that people should be making more of an effort to include a diverse group of DJs when they're creating events. Another thing that I struggle with personally is that when people approach me for opportunities, I kind of am a little defensive, especially if it's a male person, a male approaching me, because I'll just assume it's for a specific reason, but sometimes it's not. Like, so there's always like this suspicion, whereas I don't think you have that as much if you're a male DJ. If someone tries to contact you, it's not like, oh, this person has hidden intentions and that's why they're contacting me. Like they're trying to get my pants. And it's like as a female, you're kind of conditioned to think that way, which is really unfortunate. And so I don't know if that has made it more difficult for me to communicate with people. I mean, I try to be nice to everybody and give most people the benefit of the doubt, but you still get a lot of weird, creepy people, or people who aren't there to listen to you DJ, but just be like, questionable.
I do think the women DJs out there, they always have to put in a bit more effort to prove themselves. It seems like there's a lot of guys that are just kind of automatically dismissive of that they have the technical capability to DJ, or that they know what they're doing, or the music and that kind of stuff, and that's pretty shitty. So that they have to deal with that, or that they have to put up with comments on their stream about their appearance and stuff like that, or dudes hitting on them while they're DJing. Seen several channels that have had to have rules about guys not doing that, and kicking dudes off for that kind of creepy behavior or objectifying behavior. And I definitely I don't have to deal with that at all. I never have people really objectifying me when I'm DJing or questioning my abilities or anything like that. And
I mean, it's kind of strange too as a DJ, because you want to be nice to your fans, but also if somebody's being weird to you, you also want to lay clear boundaries. So, and it's also something you need to think about while you're DJing, especially on Twitch when people can make comments. And so that's it's kind of cognitively demanding to be okay, I'm busy doing this, but then I also have to deal with this comment that's I don't know if it's appropriate. I want to give people benefit of the doubt, but
You balance each other out. We talked before about collabs or remixes. Do you do any of that? And if so, what's your process?
We've been starting to do remixes, and it's really fun. I think a lot of the skills that I've learned DJing translate directly into doing these remixes. Like I know exactly what I like. I'm like, okay, this would be great here. Sprite and I have different ways of doing the creative process. Sprite really likes to be thorough. So whenever he's like looking for like a specific, a drum sound, he's like, okay, I'm gonna listen to every single one. Whereas I'm more of the person to say like, this one is good. I like this one. Let's just keep going and let's move on to the next thing, just because I know.
You are much more decisive, whereas I will spend time to like tweak sounds and try to find things how I like, and I'll spend as much time as I need doing that.
Once I like something, I just want to move on because I know the decision fatigue is a real thing.
Yeah.
Can't rush perfection.
Well, I mean, nothing will ever be perfect, though. And if you try to be perfect in everything you do, then you're never going to finish it. I mean, when do you know you're ever finished with something creative that you do? I mean, you could work on it indefinitely.
Yeah, I don't think that there is that limit to artists. I think in my own experience, I've spent like 6 months just mixing an album before, and that at some point you have to say that's as good as I'm gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to settle for, and I think that imperfection is what makes it perfect. It's that duality.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to ask you, is it easier, you think, these days with social media to be a DJ, or is it better back in the day where you had to pass out flyers by hand and go put them on, cars and guerrilla market at somebody else's event? Which is easier and why?
I can't speak to the older way, but I will say that we do spend a lot of time with promotions. That is a lot of the bulk of the time that I spend doing DJing.
It's way easier now. Like having to go out and physically flyer and, go to shows and put up posters and street poles and go to all like the record stores and stuff like that. It was just such a huge pain in the ass. And you never really had any idea like how much reach you were actually getting. Like if flyers just got thrown away like 5 minutes after you dropped them off in a place and, stuff like that. Whereas like now just being able to reach people through, a couple hundred people or more at once on social media is, so much easier. And you can, see your metrics a little bit and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's easier. At the same time, like this technology is it's democratizing, right? So more people have access to it, so more people are probably DJing and promoting themselves. So there's a bigger pool of people out there probably doing this type of stuff. So it's a little bit harder to make yourself stand out with that kind of stuff. That can be the challenge sometimes.
Let's take a step aside and ask if there's any advice that you would have for anybody that was wanting to learn how to be a DJ.
For learning how to be a DJ, I think these days there's tons of great tutorials online on like YouTube and stuff, but also just don't be afraid to ask existing DJs to help you out. Like that's how I got started, was having, DJs that were willing to help us actually to come to the club and show us the equipment and give us some like time at the beginning of the night to practice, or, even before the venue's open, like that kind of thing, or just come over. I've done the thing where I've had people come over to my house and I've shown them how to work equipment. I think generally, hopefully, a lot of DJs are willing to help other people out, learn this type of stuff.
A lot of the way I've learned, though, too, is just through actual practice and just seeing what sounds good, seeing what other people are doing on their streams and curating a playlist and transitioning. Yeah, it's just experimenting. I mean, that's it's kind of the fun of it, right? Like, if you're not having fun actual playing around, then what's the point of doing it?
Yeah, I would say don't worry about being technically awesome and amazing at first. The first thing is picking out the music you want to play, the music that will appeal to people, and just having decent transitions. They don't have to be technically perfect. You don't necessarily, even depending on the genre, you don't even need to necessarily worry about beat matching or mixing as much. Just have a decent transition so it's not a train wreck. And there's different ways of doing that, and just learn some simple techniques and focus on that at first, and then you can pick up the other stuff later on as you go.
Yeah, and it's easy to compare yourself to other DJs, but everyone is at a different stage in their journey. Like everyone starts out as a beginner, everyone starts out like, you know, not great, and then works their way up.
Do you have any way for people to reach you on social media or a website?
Our link trees.
Linktree, linktr.ee/anarchotaxboard, Linktree, linktr.ee/DJ FleshBot.
And we also have Nexus 6 Chicago.